All right, so this is video 2 of the GI tract related diseases. And first up for this video is going to be cholera. And it is caused by the bacteria Vibrio cholera. And the genus name Vibrio lets you know what this organism looks like. Vibrio refers to comma-shaped cells. And this is one of the most serious of the gastrointestinal diseases, and you'll find out why soon. So cholera is an acute diarrheal illness that's caused by the toxigenic bacteria that I just mentioned, Vibrio cholerae. And this bacteria is commonly found in water or foods that have been contaminated by feces from an individual that is currently infected with the organism. And so this organism and therefore this disease are going to be most commonly spread in locations that have inadequate water treatment, where there's less than ideal, hygiene, poor sanitation. And this disease can really spread pretty rapidly, especially if treatment of sewage and drinking water is inadequate. And so although this infection is not really likely to spread from one person to another person, if a water source is contaminated, right, it can be a pretty big issue. Now, fortunately, especially in the United States, cholera can be treated by the immediate replacement of fluids and salts, because as you're going to hear in just a few minutes, that's going to be the big signs and symptoms here. There's going to be this very massive loss of fluids and electrolytes and ions. And so by replacing them with an oral rehydration solution, we can help this. Okay, because the oral rehydration solution is basically this prepackaged mix of salts and sugars. You mix it with a liter of water, and this is drunk in very large quantities. Okay, so why is Vibrio cholera so scary? Is because it has the cholera toxin, and that toxin is going to be found on a plasmid. Okay, so that's kind of unique. We've talked about bacteria that get their virulence factors from a bacteriophage, right, transduction, but we haven't really talked about virulence factors associated with plasmids. So remember, plasmids are extracellular pieces of DNA, meaning that they are not part of the chromosome, but they offer some sort of advantage to the organism. And in this case, Vibrio cholerae is going to be, the advantage is going to be this toxin. And I do want to point out that there's a typo on this slide. The organism name should have an E at the end, Vibrio cholerae. Okay, sorry about that. So what's going to happen with this toxin? So this is an exotoxin. And so part of this toxin is going to bind to epithelial cells. Okay, and it's going to be taken into the cell. And what's going to happen is the part of the toxin that enters the cell is an enzyme, and it's specifically going to activate a molecule called adenylate cyclase. And that is the molecule that makes something called cyclic AMP, which is a secondary messenger molecule. And one of its jobs is dealing with the transfer or transport of like ions and things like that. And so by essentially stimulating the production of cyclic AMP, it's going to trigger the cell to release really important ions, sodium, chloride, and other electrolytes. And it's going to be this mass exodus from the cell. And so the patient is actually going to lose anywhere from about 12 to 20 liters of liquid per day, right? That can cause organ failure, shock, death. Because of this loss of fluid, blood can become very viscous, right, which will disrupt the function of organs. Sunken eyes, violent vomiting, and even muscle cramping will all likely occur, again, because of this massive loss of fluids, okay? So this is definitely a very scary disease that can have really serious impacts on a population. Next up is going to be traveler's diarrhea, which is caused by E. coli, a specific strain called E. tech. Sorry, y'all, I tried to pause the recording and I don't know if it actually did or not. Okay, so with E. coli, specifically E. tech, again, it's associated with traveler's diarrhea, which is the most common travel-related illness, mostly in non-immunocompromised individuals. The diarrhea associated with this disease is not going to be life-threatening, but of course, it will make your vacation a bit unpleasant because the symptoms and signs associated with this disease are going to come on very quickly, within 1 to 3 days. So most likely while you're still trying to enjoy your trip. So you're going to see watery diarrhea being a key sign or symptom of this. Oftentimes it's going to be bloody as well. So with E. tech, it's called enterotoxigenic E. coli. And this is going to be, like others, transmitted by water or food that's been contaminated with feces, whether it be animal feces, human feces. And so with this, you want to make sure that you are going to, really make sure you're eating hot meals, like right after they're cooked, that you're avoiding raw food or food that even sits out, right? Fecal oral transmission, and drink bottled water, right? Wash your hands, drink bottled water. Best way to make sure you don't come into contact with contaminated food or water. If, again, you were to come into contact with E. tech, then the signs and symptoms are going to come on really quickly. Pretty severe stomach cramps. When it comes to the watery, sometimes bloody stool, there's going to be pretty abrupt onset, like 1 to 3 of these types of stools per day. There's often going to be vomiting, sometimes a fever. People normally recover in about a week, maybe a little bit less, but not too terrible, just pretty uncomfortable. All right, last up for this video is going to be gastroenteritis caused by a kind of familiar organism, Clostridium perfringens. So we talked about this organism when it came to gas gangrene. So now let's talk about it with respect to the GI tract. This organism can be found on raw poultry, right, raw meat. It's also found just in the environment along with the intestines of animals. Remember that Clostridium is a genus of organisms that can make spores, and under certain conditions, these spores can germinate and the bacteria can grow, okay? So once someone swallows the bacteria, it can produce a toxin, and that toxin is going to cause diarrhea. And it turns out that we typically see a spike in cases of C. perfringens gastroenteritis in November and December because it's commonly associated with holiday meals, right? All the different types of meats, turkeys and things. And so again, if somebody gets infected with this bacteria, there's typically going to be the diarrhea, the stomach cramps. And it's kind of like Staphylococcus aureus with the respect that it comes on really strong, about within 6 to 24 hours of eating the contaminated food, but the signs and symptoms normally only last for about 24 hours. So really with this, it can cause dehydration, so you want to make sure you drink plenty of fluid. What's unique about this one is you're not going to see any fever or vomiting, and it cannot be passed from person to person. All right, y'all, that's it for this video. Let me know if you have any questions.